This week at church, we looked at an interesting passage where Jesus, the Son of God, goes to John the Baptist to be baptized. This seems strange. Certainly, John found it strange, because Jesus seems like the last person who would ever need to be baptized. He's the perfect Son of God. What sin could he possibly need to repent from? But Jesus says this is necessary because part of his assignment here on earth is to live the righteous life on earth that we couldn't and go through all the same things we go through. I want to turn our attention to what happens next, though, because there's something very significant that happens as Jesus begins his ministry. John chapter 3 tells us that Jesus and his disciples start baptizing people as well, close to where John is doing his ministry. At some point, some people go to John and point out to him that the crowds are now going to Jesus, and less people are interested in what John is saying and doing. What will happen to John if people start ignoring him? Is John going to lose his ministry? John, meanwhile, has a very important response to this in John chapter 3, verses 27 through 30. To this John replied, "A person can receive only what is given them from heaven. You yourselves can testify that I said, 'I am not the Messiah, but am sent ahead of him.' The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater, I must become less." This is a very important line. He must become greater, I must become less. John knows that his purpose was to point people toward Jesus. The more people that are going to Jesus now, the more he knows that he has fulfilled his purpose. His mission, given to him by God, was a success, and now the Messiah is here. This is everything John the Baptist was waiting for. John is teaching us an important lesson here, because we can often be very tempted to connect our success to how many people are following and admiring us. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all these social media platforms, it's filled with people whose sole goal is to draw attention to themselves. They want the views and the likes and the followers for their own reputation, and it's a competition to see who draws in the most people. This can happen in Christian circles too. A lot of Christians measure the success of their ministry by how many people show up, or how many members their church has, or how popular they are. Leaders can sometimes act like they're in competition with each other, getting jealous over the success of other people, getting bitter when they feel like they're not as popular as someone else. This then leads to conflict and disunity, and the people of God suffer as a result. The reality is, the goal of every Christian ministry should be to point people towards Jesus. If your focus is on being faithful with the assignments God has given you, it doesn't matter if you have 10 people or 1,000 people listening to you, or if the guy next door is more popular, or anything else you might use to compare yourself to someone else. Direct people's attention to God and not yourself. And in that focus, you'll find that the things that upset other people don't seem to bother you. You don't get overwhelmed, questioning whether or not you're good enough. You don't get distracted by the burdens other people try to put on you. Instead, your focus is on Christ, and His peace is what fills your heart. As we go through this series in Matthew, let us always remember that Jesus is the King, and we're not in competition with Him. He'll be leading and guiding us, so don't get sidetracked by concerns for your own fame and glory.